The night fell over the wolf-ruled kingdom like a dark velvet cloak, heavy with mist and silence. High atop jagged cliffs, the castle loomed, its cold stones gleaming in the pale light of the full moon. The wind whispered secrets through the towers, carrying the scent of rain and the distant forests below. Within these ancient walls, Kalen, the Alpha King, moved like a shadow, his presence as commanding as the silver moonlight that spilled across the stone floors. Kalen's eyes, sharp and glinting, scanned the corridors. Even the bravest warriors of his pack avoided these late-night patrols. The castle seemed to breathe with his own heartbeat, the creak of floorboards and the occasional howl of wolves echoing in rhythm with him. He had ruled for many cycles, feared by enemies, respected by allies, and revered by his pack. Yet, beneath his composed exterior, a storm of suspicion churned. That night, Kalen's steps took him toward a part of the castle rarely visited, the private chambers of his beta, Roran. Something in his instincts, a whisper from Fenrir, his loyal wolf companion, drew him there. Fenrir padded silently beside him, ears perked and tail low, a shadow within a shadow. The wolf's senses were sharper than any human's, attuned to danger, deception, and sometimes memory. Tonight, Fenrir seemed restless, letting out low, almost mournful growls. Kalen stopped outside Roran's chamber, noticing the door slightly ajar. He didn't announce himself. Instead, he pushed it open, and what he saw froze the air around him. There, in the dim candlelight, was a woman. She was chained to the wall, her wrists bound in cold iron, her posture rigid with fear and confusion. Her dark hair fell like a curtain over her shoulders, framing a face that was both beautiful and unfamiliar. Yet there was something in her eyes that struck Kalen to the core, a spark of recognition he could not place. Fenrir stepped closer, nose twitching, growling softly. Then, almost impossibly, the wolf lowered his head in reverence, his tail flicking once, hesitantly, before stilling. Kalen's own pulse quickened. He had ruled over many humans, both allies and captives, yet none had stirred Fenrir like this. None had caused such a ripple of emotion in the wolf who had been by his side since birth. Kalen's voice, deep and steady, broke the silence. "Who are you, and why are you chained here?" The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes, wide and wary, met his. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't remember how I got here." Kalen frowned, taking a cautious step closer. Every fiber of his being was alert. There was magic in the air, subtle yet undeniable. A curse, perhaps, or something older, woven into the fate of this woman. Fenrir's growl deepened, a warning Kalen could not ignore. "Your name?" Kalen demanded, though the words felt inadequate for the flood of questions in his mind. She hesitated, struggling against her chains. "Lyra. My name is Lyra," she said finally. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet carried a hidden strength, as if her spirit had been tempered by unseen trials. Kalen's brows knitted. Lyra. The name echoed somewhere in the shadowed corners of his memory, a memory he thought he had buried long ago. The castle seemed to pulse with her presence, the walls breathing as if alive, attuned to this meeting of past and present. "Why are you here?" he asked again, though part of him feared the answer. Lyra shook her head. I don't remember. I woke up here, and the chains—" Her voice faltered, and she swallowed hard. "I feel lost." Kalen's gaze softened, a rare shift in the hardness that defined him. Yet, beneath it, a flicker of fury ignited. Why had his beta allowed this? Or worse, was this a trap? He could not yet tell. Fenrir's eyes met his, urgent and searching, silently pleading for understanding. The wolf knew something Kalen did not. Kalen moved closer, examining the chains. They were old, wrought iron, inscribed with strange runes that seemed to shift under the moonlight. Magic, Kaelin realized. Whoever had done this had intended not just to trap her body, but to ensnare her fate. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Lyra flinched but did not retreat. Her eyes, dark and searching, held a mixture of fear and trust, a contradiction that intrigued him more than it should have. Fenrir sniffed the air between them, then nuzzled her hand gently, as if recognizing a long-lost friend. Kaelin's mind raced. There had been tales, ancient prophecies whispered among the elders of the pack, stories of a woman who could calm the fiercest wolf, who carried the bloodline of a power long forgotten. Could Lyra be her? He dared not speak the thought aloud. "Lyra," he said softly, almost a command. "Tell me everything you remember, no matter how small." She closed her eyes, taking a trembling breath. "I remember running. I remember shadows chasing me, and then nothing. Just this place. And a feeling like I am supposed to be here, yet I do not belong." Kaelin felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Her words resonated with the same strange pull he had felt when Fenrir first growled at her presence. Something connected them, something older than either of their lifetimes. Before Kaelin could speak, a sound echoed from the hall outside. The beta, Roran, appeared, his face pale under the torchlight. "Kaelin," he began, but Kaelin's sharp gaze cut him off. "Explain this," Kaelin said, his voice cold, controlled, yet deadly. "Why is she chained in your room?" Roran swallowed, glancing at Lyra, then back at Kaelin. I don't know, Alpha. I swear I didn't—" Kaelin's eyes narrowed. He could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken truths, the lies hiding in shadows. "Then someone else brought her here," he said slowly, piecing together fragments of instinct and observation. "And whatever magic binds her, it is stronger than either of us." Lyra's chains rattled as she shifted, her eyes meeting Kaelin's. I feel something," she whispered. "Something alive, like a spirit watching over me. Like, I know you." Kaelin's heart clenched. How could she know him? They had never met, at least not in this lifetime. Yet the pull between them was undeniable, a thread of fate weaving them together. Fenrir's growl softened, a low rumble of recognition and relief. The wolf's instincts were never wrong. Kaelin knelt beside her, careful not to touch the magic of her chains. "Fenrir recognizes you," he said quietly, almost to himself. "He has known many humans, yet he bows to you. That alone is proof that your fate is tied to ours." Lyra blinked at him, confusion and awe mingling in her expression. "Your wolf, it knows me?" Kaelin nodded. "Yes, and if he knows you, then perhaps I should too." His voice softened, betraying the weight of a longing he had not felt in years. They sat in silence for a moment. The only sounds, the distant howl of wolves in the night and the soft whisper of wind against the castle walls. Kaelin's mind was a storm of questions, prophecies, and memories half-remembered, yet one truth became undeniable. Lyra's arrival was no accident. She had been brought here by forces beyond understanding, and her presence would change everything. Suddenly, Lyra gasped, clutching her head. I remember something. A name. A name I should not know." Kaelin's breath caught. "Say it," he commanded softly, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and hope. "Kaelin," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Kaelin." The air seemed to still, heavy with the weight of destiny. Fenrir's howl rose to meet the moon, a long, mournful sound that echoed across the cliffs. Kaelin's heart ached with recognition and longing, memories of a past love he thought lost flooding back. The storm outside the castle raged in response, lightning flashing across the sky, thunder rolling through the stone halls. Kalen reached out, his hand hovering near hers, unsure whether to bridge the gap between caution and the pull of fate. Lyra's eyes met his, wide with fear, hope, and something deeper, something ancient that neither fully understood yet. The chains rattled between them, a reminder of the forces that bound her, yet also of the possibility that they could break them. Kalen's voice, low and resolute, cut through the tension. "You are not just a prisoner, Lyra. You are part of something greater, something my pack has waited for. And I will not let anyone, harm you while I breathe." Fenrir nuzzled Lyra's hand again, as if pledging loyalty on Kalen's behalf. Lyra's lips trembled, a tear glinting in the moonlight. She reached toward Kalen tentatively, a gesture of trust, of surrender to the invisible threads that bound them together. The storm raged on, winds lashing against the walls, lightning illuminating the tense tableau of King Wolf and mysterious woman. Kalen's heart pounded, every instinct screaming that this moment would mark the turning of fate, the beginning of a story that would test love, loyalty, and destiny itself. And as Lyra's gaze lingered on him, as if recognizing not just the Alpha King but something buried deep in his soul, Kalen realized one undeniable truth. His life, and the fate of his pack, would never be the same again. Outside the chamber, shadows stirred. Eyes watched from the darkness, unseen yet palpably present. Forces older than the castle, older than the mountains, were awake, and they were waiting. Kalen rose slowly, his hand hovering near Lyra's. "Rest now," he said, voice both commanding and gentle. "You are safe, for the moment. But the night is long, and the world beyond these walls is not kind." Lyra nodded weakly, leaning back against the wall, her chains clinking softly. Fenrir curled beside her, a silent guardian. Kalen watched them both, his mind racing, knowing that the answers they sought and the dangers that awaited were only just beginning. And in the shadows beyond the torchlight, the whisper of magic drifted, echoing the same name that Lyra had spoken, a name that promised love, loss, and a destiny none could escape. The storm outside the castle raged with relentless fury. Rain lashed the stone walls, wind tore through the towers, and thunder rolled across the jagged cliffs, echoing like the roar of ancient beasts. Inside, the castle seemed to hold its breath, the flickering torches casting shadows that danced like living spirits along the walls. Kalen, the Alpha King, paced the length of his private chamber. Fenrir, his loyal wolf, sat beside the fire, ears twitching at every creak and distant howl. The wolf's eyes never left the chained woman in the corner. Lyra, whose dark hair clung to her face from the dampness of the storm outside, yet whose gaze never wavered from Kalen. The events of the previous night played over in his mind. Her chains, the recognition in Fenrir's eyes, the whispered name. It was impossible, and yet he could not deny it. Something about her stirred a memory long buried, a feeling that had haunted his dreams for years. He had ruled his kingdom with strength, wisdom, and fear. Yet this, Lyra, was beyond his control. He approached her slowly, careful not to startle her. "Lyra," he said softly, "you must tell me everything you remember, no matter how small, no matter how strange." Lyra shivered, her hands clutching the chains. I remember shadows," she whispered. "I was running and something was chasing me. I don't know what, but it wasn't human. Then I woke up here, and the chains, they feel heavy, not just on my body, but on my memory. I can't remember much else." Kalen's jaw tightened. Magic, he realized. Dark, old magic. capable of binding both body and mind. Whoever had brought her here wanted more than just a prisoner. They wanted control. Fenrir growled softly, low in his throat, and Kaelin glanced down at him. The wolf's gaze was unwavering, almost pleading. Kaelin understood. Fenrir recognized something in her, something beyond mortal comprehension. He could sense her bond with the pack, her place in the destiny that Kaelin had long suspected but never fully believed. Kaelin knelt beside her, his eyes searching hers. "Fenrir does not bow to anyone," he said quietly. "And yet he recognizes you. That alone tells me you are no ordinary human. Something ancient binds you to this place, and to me." Lyra's eyes widened and a shiver ran down her spine. "To you?" she whispered. I don't understand." "You will," Kaelin said, his voice calm but firm. "But first, you must rest. The storm is not just outside these walls. It is in the world, and it seeks to reach you. There are forces awake tonight that have slept for centuries." The chains rattled lightly as she shifted, her gaze lingering on him. "I feel something," she said. "Like I know you. Like I have known you before." Kaelin's heart clenched. Her words were more than coincidence. They were memory, fate, and prophecy woven into one. "Perhaps you have," he said softly. "Or perhaps it is the bond of the wolf that reaches through time and memory, calling us together." For a moment, silence settled in the chamber. Only the crackling fire and the low rumble of Fenrir's growl filled the space. Then the door creaked open, and Roran, the beta, appeared once more. His face was pale, his eyes wide with concern. "Alpha," Roran began, voice trembling. I still do not know how she came here. I found her chained in my room. I swear it." Kaelin rose, his shadow stretching across the stone floor. "Then someone else brought her," he said, voice low and dangerous. "And they left a curse behind, one that has waited for this moment for centuries." Lyra's chains rattled again, and she took a trembling step forward. "A curse?" she asked. I feel it. It is in me, in the chains. Something is trying to wake." Kaelin's eyes narrowed. He had ruled the pack, fought countless enemies, and faced death more times than he could count, yet the notion of this curse chilled him to his core. He could feel it in the air, in Fenrir's restless movements, in the weight of the storm outside. This was no ordinary magic. This was ancient, deliberate, and dangerous. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Lyra's face. She flinched but did not retreat. Her eyes, dark and searching, held a mixture of fear and trust, a combination that fascinated and unsettled him. Fenrir sniffed the air again, then nuzzled her hand gently, as if pledging loyalty on Kaelin's behalf. "You have a bond with the wolves," Kaelin said quietly, "a bond that I have not seen in generations. It is rare, powerful, and dangerous if you do not learn to control it." Lyra swallowed hard, her gaze flicking to Fenrir. I don't know how," she admitted. "I only know that they listen to me, that I can calm them, somehow. But I do not understand why." Kaelin's heart ached. There was power within her, yes, but also fear, confusion, and vulnerability. He understood better than anyone the weight of being bound by forces beyond one's control. "Then we will learn together," he said. "But you must trust me. No matter what comes, you must trust me." She nodded, a small, fragile gesture, and for the first time, Kaelin allowed himself to believe. Perhaps this was not just fate, it was hope. The storm outside began to shift, a strange wind moving through the halls, carrying whispers that seemed almost human. Kaelin turned, listening. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Lyra nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, voices, shadows moving. Something is coming." Before Kalen could respond, the chamber door burst open. Figures cloaked in dark magic slipped through the hall, moving with unnatural speed and silence. Kalen's instincts kicked in immediately. Fenrir leapt forward, teeth bared, a growl that shook the stone walls. Lyra's eyes widened, but instead of fear, a strange calmness settled over her. She stepped forward, raising her hands slightly, and whispered words that Kalen did not understand. The wolves in the hall, even those loyal to the intruders, froze. Fenrir's growl softened, and the intruders stumbled as if repelled by an invisible force. Kalen's jaw tightened. "So the prophecy is true," he muttered. "You are stronger than I realized, and the curse fears you." Lyra's voice was steady, though her hands shook. "I don't know how," she said, "but I can feel them. The wolves, all of them. They listen." Kalen moved beside her, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Then we will use that," he said. "But you must be careful. The magic that binds you is not yet fully understood. It is old, and it will fight back." The intruders recovered, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. They advanced, and Kalen knew that the first battle of this night had begun. With a single motion, Fenrir sprang, teeth flashing, and Kalen moved with him, his body a blur of precision and power. Lyra's voice rose, calling the wolves, and the hall seemed to shake with their combined strength. The battle was over in moments. The intruders fled into the storm, howling in frustration. Fenrir returned to Kalen's side, ears perked, eyes alert. Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her chest heaving, but her eyes calm, shining with something ancient and untamed. Kalen approached her slowly. "You did well," he said quietly. "Better than I could have imagined. But this is only the beginning. The curse. It will not be so easily defeated. Whoever placed it wants something, and they will come again." Lyra nodded, though her hands still trembled. I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "But I will try. I must." Kalen's gaze softened, though his mind remained alert. "You are not alone," he said. "Not while I live, not while Fenrir lives. We will face this together, and perhaps, in time, we will discover why fate has brought us together." Fenrir nuzzled her hand again, and she smiled faintly, a small gesture that seemed to illuminate the room more than the torches ever could. For the first time, Kalen allowed himself to imagine a future where she was not just a mystery, but a partner, an ally, and perhaps something more. But the night was far from over. The storm continued to rage outside, the winds carrying whispers of power and darkness. Somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, calculating, waiting for the moment when weakness would appear. The chains that had bound Lyra were only the beginning. Kalen turned to her, voice low and determined. "Rest now. You need your strength. Tomorrow, we begin to uncover the truth, and the pack must learn who you are, and what you can do. They must trust you, as I trust you." Lyra nodded, leaning against the wall, exhausted but resolute. Fenrir curled at her feet, his warm presence a silent promise of protection. Kalen watched her, heart heavy with both caution and longing. The woman in chains had awakened something within him, something he had long thought lost: hope, desire, and the faint stirrings of love. And as the storm outside began to ease, the whisper of magic remained, echoing in the corners of the castle. The curse was awakening. The prophecy was in motion. And Lyra, the woman who had come into his life like a shadow and a spark, would be the key to everything. The dawn broke over the jagged cliffs, casting pale golden light over the wolf-ruled castle. The storm had passed, leaving the world wet and raw, yet a sense of unease lingered in the air. The whispers of the night still echoed faintly through the halls, carrying the promise of danger and the weight of ancient magic. Kalen, the Alpha King, stood at the edge of the tallest tower, his eyes scanning the forest below. Fenrir sat at his side, alert and tense, sensing what Kalen already feared. Lyra had spent the night recovering in a quiet chamber, the chains now loosened, her hands free, but her body still weary from the strange powers awakening within her. Kalen had kept watch outside her door, unable to sleep, unable to ignore the pulse of destiny that connected them. Each moment without understanding felt like a heartbeat skipped in a life already weighted with fate. Kalen turned as Lyra stepped onto the balcony beside him, her dark hair damp from the rain and clinging to her shoulders. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of the forest and the lingering scent of magic. She began, hesitating. I think I understand a little more now. The wolves, the magic, it is part of me, part of my blood, but I don't know how to control it completely. Kalen's gaze softened, though the intensity in his eyes never wavered. You do not need to understand it all at once. We will learn together. But you must trust me completely, Lyra. No half measures. Not now. She nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. I trust you, Kalen. I think I always have. A flicker of emotion passed over Kalen's face, quickly masked by his usual control. Then we begin. The curse that brought you here, it is older than the castle, older than any of us, and it will not yield easily. Fenrir growled softly, a reminder that the wolf sensed the truth of Kalen's words. The ancient magic of the curse had not been idle. It had been watching, waiting, and now it stirred with purpose. They moved through the castle in silence, Lyra guided by instinct and the subtle pull of her magic. Kalen could feel the tension in every stone, every shadow, every echo of the walls. The curse had left marks everywhere, runic symbols etched into the stones, threads of energy pulsing faintly beneath the surface, a silent warning of the power it wielded. At the heart of the castle, in the oldest and most sacred chamber, they found the source, an altar carved from black stone, etched with runes that glowed faintly in the morning light. Lyra's eyes widened. This is it, she whispered. This is what holds the curse. I can feel it. It is trying to pull me in, to consume me. Kalen stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then we face it together. You do not face this alone. Lyra nodded, drawing a deep breath. She extended her hands over the altar, and the runes flared to life. A strange, cold wind surged through the chamber, carrying whispers in a language neither of them fully understood. The shadows on the walls writhed and twisted as if alive. Kalen drew his sword, its edge gleaming in the morning light. Fenrir stepped beside him, growling low. The Alpha King's presence alone seemed to steady the magic, pushing back against the chaos that the curse unleashed. You must speak the words, Kalen said softly, the words that the magic will recognize. I will support you. Trust yourself. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the power of the wolves and the bond she felt with Kalen guide her. Her voice rose in a chant, soft at first, then louder, stronger, resonating with a melody older than the castle itself. The runes pulsed in response, brightening and stretching across the stones like veins of light. The shadows writhed violently, then froze, caught in the force of her magic. The curse fought back, tendrils of dark energy reaching for her, trying to drag her into the stone. Kalen lunged forward, blade cutting through the dark tendrils, Fenrir at his side, teeth bared and ready. Lyra's hands shook, sweat beading her brow, yet she did not falter. The bond between her and the wolves, between her and Kalen, flowed through her, a channel of strength and resolve. Slowly, the runes glowed brighter, the tendrils of darkness shrinking, retreating into the stones. You are doing it, Kalen encouraged, his voice steady, unwavering. Keep going. Do not stop. I am with you. The final tendrils of dark energy surged one last time, wrapping around Lyra, testing her, challenging her will. She gasped, feeling the power of the curse trying to overwhelm her, yet she clung to Kalen's presence, to Fenrir's loyalty, and to the bond that had drawn her to this place. With one final commanding word, she poured all her strength into the altar. A blinding light erupted, filling the chamber with warmth and brilliance. The runes shattered, fragments of black stone falling to the floor. The shadows dissolved, the whispers silenced, and for the first time the air felt free, light, and unburdened. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily, exhausted but triumphant. Kalen knelt beside her, placing a hand on her back. Fenrir nudged her gently, a low, satisfied growl escaping his throat. "It is done," Kalen said softly. "The curse, it is broken." Lyra looked up at him, eyes wide and shining. We did it. Together." Kalen allowed himself a rare, small smile. "Together," he echoed. And in that moment, the storm of fear, suspicion, and destiny that had clouded their lives seemed to lift, leaving only the calm certainty of connection. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the weight of what they had accomplished settling around them. The castle, once shadowed and tense, seemed to breathe in relief. Fenrir lay at their feet, his eyes closing in contentment. But even as the calm settled, Kalen's mind could not ignore the reality of the world beyond the castle. The curse was broken, yes, but the forces that had awakened it were still out there. Eyes watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Kalen, I feel different. Stronger, yes. But I also feel the weight of what I carry now. The magic, the bond. It is part of me. Forever." Kalen nodded. "And you will learn to control it. I will help you. The pack will help you. And I will not let anything harm you." Lyra looked at him, a mixture of gratitude, awe, and something deeper in her eyes. I trust you," she said softly. Kalen's heart tightened. The trust she offered was more than words. It was a connection forged through danger, destiny, and shared power. He leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face, careful and reverent. "And I trust you," he replied. For a moment, the world seemed to pause, the castle, the forest, the very air holding its breath. Two souls, bound by fate, by magic, and by an unspoken bond, stood together at the edge of a new beginning. But the moment was not meant to last. A sound echoed from the highest tower, faint but unmistakable. A howl, more human than wolf, filled with malice and intent. Lyra stiffened, recognizing the sound, a memory long buried resurfacing in her mind. Fenrir's ears perked, hackles raised, a low growl vibrating through his chest. Kalen drew his sword, the familiar weight a comfort against the uncertainty. "Get ready," he said, voice low and commanding. "The night is not over. Whatever watches us, it knows we are stronger now, and it will not wait long." Lyra's eyes met his, fear mingled with determination. I am ready," she said. "I will face it. With you." Kalen nodded. "Then we face it together," he said, echoing his earlier promise. And in that moment, neither the shadows, nor the curse, nor the dangers beyond could break the bond that had been forged in the storm. Outside, the forest rustled, alive with unseen eyes. But for the first time, Kalen did not feel fear. He had Lyra at his side, Fenrir by his feet, and the certainty that destiny, no matter how dark, could be faced and conquered when they were together. As the sun rose higher, casting light over the wet cliffs and the castle below, Kaelin and Lyra stood together on the balcony, bound not by chains, but by trust, magic, and the beginnings of love. The curse had been broken, the storm had passed, but the world still held challenges, dangers, and mysteries waiting to test them. And yet, for the first time in a long time, Kaelin allowed himself to believe in something beyond fear, beyond power, beyond the relentless pull of destiny. He allowed himself to believe in Lyra, in the bond they shared, and in the future they could face together. Fenrir let out a soft, contented howl, a declaration that the pack recognized the new order, the new hope that Lyra's presence had brought. And as the castle seemed to hum with life, Kaelin knew one undeniable truth. Their story was just beginning, and whatever came next, they would face it together, as Alpha and Chosen, as king and bond, as wolf and woman united against the darkness.